It's Fill Your Plate Now, where every bite brings you closer to the farm gate and further from what's unhealthy. Now here's your hosts, Julie and Tammy, helping you live well by filling your plate well.
Welcome to this week's episode of Fill Your Plate Now. I'm really excited about this episode because, we're constantly bombarded, Julie, with information on nutrition and social media, on live TV and radio. And, I saw a statistic the other day that, and our guest may be able to correct me on this, but I think it's like less than 5% of the information is accurate.
Yikes.
I mean, there's a lot of misinformation. So today we have an expert in nutrition with us, Toby Amador, and she is a registered dietitian, has numerous other credentials, but has done a lot of work, not only in the nutrition field, but also working with the media. She's a Wall Street Journal best-selling cookbook author and has 11 publications and cookbooks. For close to 19 years, she's been the nutrition expert for FoodNetwork.com, a founding contributor to the Healthy Eats blog. Toby's a regular contributor for many national other publications, and also has penned the Ask the Expert column in today's Dietitian magazine. She's also on the medical board for Forbes.com and EatThis.com, and on the editorial board for today's Dietitian magazine. She's been quoted hundreds and hundreds of times in publications, but she's got that expertise of nutrition and then combined with that communication skill to really get the right information out there. So today we're really going to dive deeper on how to, really tease through what information is legitimate, what to look for, and talk to her a little bit about how she's gone from nutrition to putting it into practice through all those cookbooks and a new publication that she has out we'll talk about a little bit later too. So today let's welcome Toby to our podcast. We're really excited to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to finally be here.
I know we've rescheduled a couple times. You have such a busy schedule, but I'll start out just with basic stuff. How did you get interested in the nutrition field?
Well, I have to tell you this. I don't know if I've ever told you the story. My mom and dad kind of sat me down and what do you want to do when I was in college? And my mom was in a dietetics program at NYU. And I took a couple nutrition classes in college, loved it. And then I joined her at NYU and we got our masters together and graduated together.
Oh, that's so great to be able to spend that time with her and also for both of you to have that love of nutrition.
Exactly. She's still practicing in bariatrics and and I in Florida now I practice here.
Oh, that is great. So cool. And Toby, I just have to say as a communicator myself, you are quite prolific. And we're glad that you get this and you are in your sweet spot because you're going to help us dispel a lot of this misinformation. But that's I know sometimes don't we feel like it's an uphill climb that gets steeper and steeper. But with your experience and exposure to the media, what do you think is the most or the biggest misconception about nutrition in general?
I think that there's a couple of them, but one of them is that nutrition really dramatically changes. And if you actually look at the 1977 McGovern report, they're on the right tracks, with science evolving throughout the years, the past 50, 60 years since the McGovern report or however much time it's been. We do get new kind of information, but it doesn't change the basis. And if you look back there, it basically says increase your fruits and vegetables, increase your whole grains, have your, dairy, have, less salt. It does say don't have foods with cholesterol. We know from research now that that's not the case. That's not what increases your blood cholesterol. It's the saturated fat. So, most of that basic information has truly been there for many, many years that we've always known.
Yeah, I remember when I was just a child, Mom was so frustrated with my older brother and I and our health. So she started getting into just basic nutrition and she was kind of doing it when it wasn't cool. I won't tell you how old I am, but it's been quite a while. So,
Well, that's another thing. Nutrition isn't super cool. Like, it's not super sexy. And when the information comes from dietitians, like eat your fruits and vegetable, everyone's like, okay, we've heard this. But the reality is, if you look at the Healthy Eating Index, which is like a score from 0 to 100 on how Americans are doing based on the dietary guidelines and how they're eating, they're really in the like 50 percentile, if
oh
not
wow.
lower. Sometimes it depends, on the age range, but we're not doing it. So as unsexy as it sounds, if we did it, we'd probably be a lot healthier.
Yes.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. No, I totally agree. And I know you were talking about your mom and what she was doing to help keep you healthier. I think the social media piece of it has just muddied the waters so much in our current time frame
Yeah.
because there's so much out there. And I think, nutrition does evolve and we learn new things, so that changes, but also the misinformation, like you said, it's not a glamorous thing, it's not a sexy thing. And so when you see something new out there, people glom onto it. How do you
Yep.
what do you say to you deal a lot with the public in communicating nutrition. How do you tell them to tease out the fact from the fiction?
I mean, I truly say to go for the registered dietitian. If it's somebody looking to make money selling a lot of supplements, that's a really big red flag. If it sounds too good to be true, that's another one. There are also a lot of influencers, and they're there to get sponsors, and they have no nutrition education background. That's a huge red flag. 99.9% of those people are not disseminating the correct information. And really, even my children, I have a son, he's in his early 20s, and he even calls me. He's like, okay, this cool guy, he has, a couple million, if not more million followers, and he's saying to drink this or take this or this protein drink. Everyone loves him, so I want to do it. And I'm like, could you please, here are two registered dietitians, please watch. They actually, did a whole Instagram reel about it. Please, and sometimes I even call them and I'm like, could you do an Instagram reel to dispel this for my son? Because sometimes he doesn't want to even listen to me. But those are a lot of the people that, they get the TV time, they're with the celebrities, and people believe what they say, but they're not educated in nutrition and dietetics. And we do go by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. There's a whole clinical nutrition guide. The universities are credentialed to teach specific information. We have hands-on, I think now it's about 1,200 hours in terms of hands-on experience, and then a very, very intensive exam we have to pass. So, we do a lot in terms of our education, and then when we disseminate, we do have liability insurance, like to make sure we say what is appropriate and backed up by science.
Wow. Tammy, you may have alluded to it a little bit before. It's just regarding misinformation. Is it mostly because of the sources that we're going to, or is it part of it, Toby, or what? If we dig a little deeper on this, I lack the word, but like this overload of misinformation.
There's something, everybody eats, right? So we feel we're an expert in food because we all have to eat, and we do eat. And so, if somebody has, a nice shape or whatnot, they may promote that and say, hey, this is what I eat. That's what you should be eating. But that's not how nutrition works. And number two, it also, it promotes bad body image and feeling guilty about food. And these are things we want to stay away from. And a lot of people, if I have, like, even my girls, my daughters, I have two actually a little older daughters. I say, if anyone makes you feel bad about yourself in any which way, it could be food or anything else, just stop following them. That's not something that should be disseminated or heard from, 20,000 times in your feed. So remember also, the information passes throughout the world now in milliseconds. So we're
Yeah.
not just getting it from, at first, what was it? Like horses went from town to town giving you the newspaper, and then we had mail, and now it's like telephone. And now we have such speed on this misinformation that we get bombarded by all this information, and then you kind of like get entertained. It's almost like entertainment nutrition, and that's not real nutrition.
Yeah.
That's true. That heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend, and it seems to work for them, and
Yes.
they're so willing to try that. Is there any kind of prevalent misinformation you're seeing now that needs to be corrected, or is there any predominant
There's
trend?
so much information. Like I just wrote a story for US News that came out, a few days ago, which I shared in my newsletter as well. But I've been going through perimenopause. Nobody could figure out symptoms. Everyone was telling me to do the weight loss shots, the GLP-1 medication. But I'm like, that's not what I want. It's not about the weight loss. I need to understand what's going on. But no one told me I was in perimenopause for like numerous years already. And I'm not, everyone said you have to be in your mid 50s. You're already past it by then. A lot of people, not everybody. So until I got good information, even from physicians or people I talk to, they're like, "Oh, you're fine. Just eat, watch what you eat." I'm like, "No, I can't. It's not working because my cravings are so terrible and I wasn't regulating my appetite. I was hungry all the time and it was for years. It wasn't just for like a month or a few days." So until I got that diagnosed with a doctor, like a legitimate doctor who was up to date with the research, I was getting tons of bad information, including stick yourself with a GLP-1 for weight loss. I would have still had all my symptoms from perimenopause, just a lot of weight loss, but that's not what I was looking for.
Wow,
Oh,
that's
geez.
a tough. And sometimes when we go on this course of trying to figure something out, it can be a very winding road. So I don't know if I want to say the most interesting, but what has been one of the most intriguing pieces of misinformation about nutrition that you have had to
I
battle?
mean, a lot of these TikTok trends I end up writing about, like oats Zempic. If you have oats mixed in water, it's the same. It'll help like lose
Oh,
weight, like Ozempic, or, drink dried chia seeds, which should actually make you choke and is dangerous.
yeah.
Yes.
Put garlic up your nose, which actually is dangerous. It brings people to the hospital. So even these small things,
I'm
that
just,
people think may help like colds or, it help with immunity. That's what the garlic in the nose was. I wrote about it a while ago.
Oh
So
my.
even my daughters come back from school and their teachers are asking them to ask me about certain trends like this. But they
garlic.
see it all over. It's what they're seeing on social media or
Sure.
what you're seeing on the news. And a lot of even the news, if I talk to, because I am on television a bunch, but some of the stations are not even going with registered dietitians. And even that disseminated information, I'm like, oh, that was so incorrect, the information that was just said. So, and I try to encourage them to use, and anyone I work with, a registered dietitian who really understands the background, the history, the science of what's going on.
Wow. Well,
Interesting.
I am thinking that garlic in the nose might be a great April Fool's Day prank to play on someone, though.
Yeah, but people went to the hospital with it because
Oh,
they couldn't get it out.
oh,
They were like stories
Oh
on that.
my
they
goodness.
were really putting garlic up their nose, not just
They
on the,
really
yeah. Oh,
were. And
wow.
I
Oh,
just saw who was it? It was, if you go see Jacqueline London, she just did something where someone said if they were sleeping with an onion on their foot
Oh my
to
oh,
try
goodness.
to get rid of toxins in their body. That's what the social media person was
oh
claiming.
my goodness. I
Yeah,
mean,
you know what,
Yeah.
Toby?
And
You're always
yeah.
gonna have plenty to write about and plenty to counter. I don't think you'll lack for.
No.
but yeah, but and you've written about so many things. I noticed on your bio when I was going through the longer bio, you've done a lot on food safety too. What got you into that area?
So when I taught for over 10 years it was the Art Institute in New York City that then turned into, it was bought over by, oh, it was New York Restaurant School bought over by the Art Institute. So that was in the late 90s. I taught for over 10 years and then I taught in their online department, but food safety is what I taught. And I realized not many people really understood. So teaching it so many years to so many classes, I kind of like then really understood. And then I ended up teaching it at Columbia to their dietetic internship class. And then at some other universities for many years. I was at Teachers College as an adjunct for 10 years. And it was a big part of the dietetic exam, believe it or not, because a lot of dietitians do work in food service. And it's of utmost importance to keep the food. Okay, great that you picked healthy food, produce, milk, whatever you're choosing, but then you need to keep it safe. You can't just leave your milk container on the counter overnight and expect it to be like safe to drink the next day. You have to keep it in the refrigerator. and take it out and then put it back when you're done. And that time temperature is really important to maintain the nutrition and safety of the food.
So we talk. Remember one of the podcast episodes we talked about with safety a little bit on a broader scale, including agriculture. But I think you were the one that said, Tammy, the CDC identifies more instance of food safety fails, so to speak, in the kitchen.
Yeah, at home rather than
home.
out at restaurants.
Yeah, rather than at restaurants.
Yeah.
But, again, since that's an area of your expertise, Toby, I just have to ask, what's one of the biggest food safety tips that you have to constantly give consumers?
One of them, and I've written a couple articles on, is to be quite careful with raw milk, especially with high risk populations. It's just, even if you know where it's coming from, there's a lot of incidents of microorganisms like Listeria, mindless cytogenes, and some other ones that really can get someone sick or can cause a woman who's pregnant to have a miscarriage, or kids, very young kids. It's very dangerous for them. So that's when the pasteurization is super important. You're still getting the 13 nutrients, found in milk. So that's something that I've been seeing a lot of. If someone's an adult, they do have a little bit stronger immune system, but they're still prone to getting sick. You never know what part of the cow's milk you're drinking and which part would have, potentially have a microorganism in it.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I just was listening to a webinar the other day on the gut-brain connection, and one of the newest trends with consumers is they think raw milk may help their gut, and it is so untrue. And there's no science behind it. It's just one of those consumer word-of-mouth trends that's trending right now. And raw milk can be, anything from an animal source, right? It needs to be cooked or pasteurized or treated.
Right, even apple cider. That's unpasteurized. So you see it a lot of times. You see it with the end of season apples on orchards or whatnot. They'll turn them, or not the perfect apples, they'll turn them into cider that's not pasteurized. The problem is sometimes a lot, they could be contaminated with some of the animal droppings or whatnot that was in the orchard. And that's not unusual. They grow outside. That's normal. That's nature.
Right.
But having that pasteurization is super important. What it's doing is it's bringing the food product to a specific temperature for a certain amount of time. It destroys the pathogenic or the microorganisms that get you sick, but it maintains the nutrition in there as well.
Even the history behind why we pasteurize. One of the reasons is because food safety was a critical issue.
Absolutely.
Too many people were getting sick that had compromised immune systems. Like you said, that population that would be at risk, Toby, maybe someone with a strong immune system, it's not going to impact you at all. But the history behind why we pasteurize, let alone gives you the inspiration to realize they really put research and thought and heart into it because they're trying to protect consumers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was glad to see too when I was looking at your bio that you helped with putting what you were saying into practice through writing cookbooks. How did you get started with the cookbook area?
Oh, sorry. I have my dog barking, of course, because they hear someone outside or it's raining, one of the others. But basically, somebody had asked me to write about, what was it? Oh, I wrote so long ago, I don't even remember. I wrote a food science textbook it was also for college students, and I wrote the chapter on milk and dairy. I have it on my shelf somewhere in my office. And so a publisher saw that I wrote about it because I posted about it, and they asked me to write the Greek Yogurt Kitchen. And that was my first cookbook. And the story in the Greek Yogurt Kitchen in the introduction, actually, the preface of it, basically, when I gave birth in 2002 to my son, one of the things my mom brought to me was Greek yogurt. It was the first one on the shelf. And it was a thick, creamy, it was one had honey on the side, and it was full fat or 2%, I forget. It was really nice and creamy is what I remember, and cold, and the honey was just sweet, and it balanced it. And after I had my son, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best ever. And I fell in love with Greek yogurt then.
And that
and
kind of inspired everything else.
And it's
Yeah.
still growing in popularity. That's for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So you kind of
Absolutely.
hinted to us how you got into nutrition, and then you and your mother were studying together basically for your master's level. What, you know, was it just because you found a topic, or what caused you to really dive into the culinary arts and get really interested in this?
I was good at it. So when we have to take like a food science lab, and we do, so you take food science, learn all about, how foods interact, caramelization, all kinds of things in the kitchen, really fun. But you had to take the lab, and in the lab, you had to cook. So it was like egg day, cook eggs 10 different ways, or, make bread or whatever they had us cook. And then our final project was to like, here's your surprise. Like, think about like the TV shows. Here's your, everyone choose a random plate, whatever's on it, you have to cook. So I got like chicken with some sides, and I did a really nice job presenting it. And my teacher, even, who became my friend later on, she like was like, look at Toby. She has the nice marks on her chicken, and it stands out to show the portion. It was, I was in my early 20s. I didn't know what what it was out there so much, but I just, really turned out to be really good at it. And then I went home and started really cooking from a lot of the dietitians who did have at the time cookbooks. And I just started cooking and cooking. And my mom, too, is a prolific cook, and she became a chef as well. She left the program at NYU for like 6 months or 8 months. And she got her culinary degree and then finished off her master's degree.
So
So she
cool.
was like cooking everything possible in the kitchen as well.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And you've written a number of cookbooks now, haven't you?
Yeah, I have 11 cookbooks, and
Mm,
I am currently starting my 12th.
that's great. I think that's such a great way to put, what you talk about to people and try to educate them on into practice, into healthy meals and cooking food in the proper way. Have you
Mhm.
found with with the profession of nutrition and communicating with others, any difficult areas? Are there areas that become challenging, do you think?
I mean, that's with my years of practice, I've learned to discuss certain more difficult topics out there that maybe people, are confused about, not sure how to approach, or, maybe there's a lot of controversy in the media or in politics about. So those are things that I don't shy away from. I used to, but now because I know the science and I know, what's really going on, and I talk to the researchers that have been in stuff, for 20, 30, 40 years, and I really do my homework with everything. And so I really like to anything and everything, someone has to ask me, or someone asks me to write about, an editor asks me to write about, I will write about. Because to disseminate any kind of information in a proper way, not everybody can do, and, in sound bites, we call it. And that's also when I go teach dietitians in some of the master's programs. I'm like, okay, you can't write everything you know, and dietitians like to tell you everything you know. So
That is true.
if you ever see a dietitian, this is my hint for you. Don't just say, "What do you know on X?" Just say, "Can you give me a few sentences on
Oh,
whatever topic you want to ask them about?" Otherwise, they'll be talking your ear off for hours.
That's because they think, and it is all important, but consumers
Yeah.
lose their train of thought pretty easily. We're used to sound bites.
that is an interesting point. Yeah, in other words, don't flood with a flood of information. It's going to be overwhelming to the consumer. And
Yeah.
despite some of, I'm sure sometimes all the misinformation that comes out, it must discourage or be, maybe not be discouraging. You sound like a young woman with a lot of moxie. So you can handle all this tough stuff. But on the flip side of it, what's the most rewarding aspects of what you do, especially when you are trying to help consumers understand things?
When sometimes I get super nice emails, or I bought your cookbook and I really enjoyed, these recipes, or someone takes a picture and tags me. Like when I know someone's utilizing or really learn, like I got with my recent US News story, my own story and experience with, finding the answers to my perimenopause journey. Like I got a lot of people, thanking me, saying I shared it with some people who really needed this. Can we have your, doctor's name? I'm like, follow her on social. She gives great information, and she does. But, that kind of thank yous. really, that's what I really enjoy. And that makes me know that you really utilized what I've created, whether it's with words or, with a recipe.
And that's what might be key to this. It's neat to hear what inspires you, and it's great that you've got customers that will reach out and tell you thank you. That it kind of lets you know that you're on the right path. But the other thing with good information, maybe one of the keys is source and look for their expertise. If they are a medical doctor and they are on social media and they're staying front and center with their expertise, it's one of the signs for us that the information that they're providing is probably going to be key. I mean, even since I've been working with you, Tammy, for our Fill Your Plate Now podcast, I make a point, if I want to learn something new on a nutritional level, that I'm going to see if they have all of the letters behind their name. The right letters behind their name.
We've talked about that, yes.
Yeah, the right letters behind your name.
Well, and what I love about Toby is from the first time we talked, everything you talk about is science-based.
Right.
And that's true with most dietitians. I mean, we really stick to the science, and social media can be flashier and fun and get your attention, but it's not always science-based.
No, but if somebody is science-based on social media and teaching you correctly, I do feel like you can find it there. Just don't lean on social media to get your information.
Yes.
Most of the time, sometimes you have, as long as they stay in their lane, I say.
Yes.
Because you might have, let's say, a physical therapist talking nutrition. I don't tell you how to do physical therapy. Please don't,
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's where I start. Even though they're credentialed, they're not credentialed in that specific. And it's every, physical therapy too. You need years, and now they're getting PhD. I'm never going to go in that lane. I've never been educated on that. But it could be anybody, a MD. I've even had some doctors give me nutrition advice, and it was incorrect. And I just, I'm not listening to them because clearly I know it better than they do because I was educated on nutrition.
Yeah.
Number one, find if that their area of expertise. Number two, test that they're staying in their own lane. Yep.
Yeah. So wanted to go back to your books a little bit too, because in the cookbooks, I've glanced through them, and you do intertwine some nutrition information in there, like your Greek yogurt book. You talk about the benefits of yogurt, and how did you? My curiosity, how did you come up with a whole recipe book on yogurt? Was that difficult to do?
131 recipes, because 13 is my lucky number.
And you
so
probably tested them all numerous times too, right? Oh.
Of course I tested them all. And actually books 2 to, I think it was 10, my daughters helped me as well in many of those. So they can cook anything and everything. If you they're like, just show me the recipe. And now they could do things, from scratch without a recipe.
I love it.
Yeah. That's the real, that, then I tested it because they could do everything too, and they did it with me. So, but I just, I went and I said, where can we add Greek yogurt? That really would make a difference. So I like the idea of baking, that you can swap out part of the butter if you want to decrease, somebody, if they want to decrease their saturated fat a little bit, they can do it by, half the stick of butter. So you could still use half of it. So you're still using the butter because it has such a beautiful flavor and does nice mouthfeel. But then you can also put in some Greek yogurt as well to mix with that. The thing is, when you cook any Greek yogurt, you're not getting, those probiotics are getting destroyed with the heat. So, but you are making that swap. But then I have ice. I have and I have really good icebox bar. I have pancakes. So you can make buttermilk pancakes, but I swapped in Greek yogurt, and every child of mine asked for it to be made for their birthday. No mix. They're like, from scratch. Because I get a lot of samples, and we some of the mixes every so often if we're really in a rush. But, they want, nope, even if it's on a weekday, we want it from scratch.
I love that.
So, yeah, it was really fun to make. I have a spanakopita in there too. I have really fun recipes. I love that one.
I'm going to have to check that out. I love yogurt, and I love Greek yogurt. So can we get a little hint of what your next cookbook is? Can you give us a preview?
Well, this one just came out, the health shot. So this was a really, if you're on the camera, you can see it. That one is behind me, and so that one was super fun because I don't want people to think a health shot is the answer to all your medical problems. It's not. It's more to fill nutrient gaps. If you, let's say you're not taking in, because I do have milk in some of them. I have tart cherry juice. So if you're not doing certain things, eating certain foods, and these health shots can help you like fill some of the nutrient gaps that maybe you wouldn't get otherwise, but you still need to have a healthy diet. So that was out in November. And then my next one will certainly have dairy in it. Promise you that. And cottage cheese. I just tested a couple of
Cottage
recipes of
cheese
cottage
is a
cheese.
big thing right now. But with the health shots one though, I was reading a little bit of it, and it was talking about easing anxiety, improving immunity, boosting your energy, all things that consumers are looking for. So I think being able to do that through diet is really exciting.
Exactly. And it's things you can find in your cabinet. Again, it's not going to look, if you really have anxiety, please see a health professional. But if you want like a little bit of an ease, again, it's help filling these nutrient gaps. Certain nutrients have been shown to help work in that process in your body. So if you actually take them in, your body can utilize them. So that's what really the health shots are. Like I said, filling nutrient gaps or getting those nutrients you usually wouldn't get for different, things that you might be. It could be hair, it could be, immunity, it could be a lot of different things. Like the immunity ones are a lot of antioxidant foods are included in there.
So, do you now get approached by publishers often just because you've been so prolific with some of the insights, like your latest health shots
The
recipe book,
next
stuff
one
like
I
that?
did get approached was someone who had worked with me before from a different publishing house. Yes. So it really depends. But I do have an agent who is the most amazing agent. I've had her for since over 10 years. So, she knows what I can do and she helps, and once they see my work, a lot of people do like it. Old publishing houses, they come back to me and ask me to write more. So it really depends.
And Toby, if we go on either possibly your website or Amazon, I'm assuming Amazon's.
Yeah.
I mean, do we just plug in your last name and up will pop several of your books?
Yeah, if you do even Toby Nutrition with a Toby, I just pop up because I've written thousands of articles. So you'll get like, it's funny because some of the people I work with in the industry, they're like, if we need any information, we just type your first and last name and then the topic and it comes up. So I've written about so many different topics.
Excellent.
Yeah, but Amazon has like I have a page and like all my books are there. And then on my website, I always make it available and you can go to whatever bookstore sells them and you can purchase it for like Barnes and Nobles or Amazon or Books a Million. It depends which book, but I have links on my website to,
Excellent.
and Amazon does have all of them. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, so kind of going full circle, if you had to give our listeners 3 tips then on, finding good nutrition information, avoiding misinformation, what would you tell them?
First, look for the registered dietitian. I think that's probably the top piece of advice. You can even look who I'm following, in that sense, because those are the dietitians that I love. Or you can always ask me, I need someone for, pediatrics. I can always like send you some profiles. So that's one, RD. Number 2, if someone sounds to be too good to be true, whatever they're saying, or they're disparaging different foods a ton, it's probably not correct. So, if you see them selling something to make money, saying only eat this, don't eat these 3 food groups, you want to eat all the food groups. So that is definitely someone you want to stay away from or don't listen. You can watch them for entertainment, but don't listen to their nutrition advice. And let me see the third one. Third one, look at people who enjoy food. I think that's really, and look for, it should make you feel good and it should be part of your healthy lifestyle. And, anyone who disseminates that type of information, especially on social media with like, beautiful recipes with fruits and vegetables and dairy and nuts and beans and seeds, that's what you really want to look for.
That's great. I know food should be enjoyable, it should be healthy, and it shouldn't be any of these extreme diets or leaving out food groups or massive amounts of supplements.
Enjoy it with your family. Enjoy the history of your family, where you're from, your culture, the foods that go with that. Like enjoy all of that.
That's great. Well, this has been really fun. I've enjoyed
Yes.
this. Good information, and we really appreciate you coming on today. And we will make sure we put your website for your book. And if you want to tell us again the best place to go to look for some of your books.
Sure. My website is Toby, Toby, Amador, Amidor, nutrition.com, or just type in my first name in nutrition. You'll find everything.
Great, because I'm sure some of our listeners will want to follow up and get some of those books. You've got great information.
Thanks, Toby.
you.
Thanks for being with
I have
us.
to tell you, you also made me feel like, you know what? Just stick to those people that know our dietitians, our nutritionists, our RDs, and that we can celebrate and enjoy our food.
That's it.
Keep it
That's
simple and enjoy food.
Yep.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks so much, Toby. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.